The laugh hit before the door closed. It came from inside the room, sharp and surprised, the kind of laugh that wasn't cruel on purpose but still landed like a dropped plate. Ethan Miller heard it through the thin hallway walls of the Cedar Falls Community Center and felt his stomach tighten before his brain caught up. For half a second, he thought maybe it wasn't about him. Then he looked down. Neon orange running shorts, a wrinkled navy blazer borrowed from a thrift store, black dress socks pulled up too high, white sneakers still dusted with dried mud from the morning dog walk. And on his head, because the morning had gone that kind of wrong, a faded baseball cap advertising a local plumbing company that had gone out of business sometime during the Obama administration. Ethan froze, one hand still on the door handle. The laugh softened into a cough. Someone cleared their throat. Someone else said, "Oh, hey. If this were a movie, this would be the opening shot." A man framed in a doorway, dressed for 4 different lives at once, realizing he had chosen the exact wrong combination for the exact wrong moment. Outside, Cedar Falls, Ohio, was enjoying a polite early autumn morning. The sky was pale blue, almost apologetic. Maple trees along Main Street were just beginning to turn, their leaves flirting with red and gold. Pickup trucks and compact sedans lined the curb in front of the community center, their windshields catching the sun. It was the kind of town where people dressed practically, where nobody tried too hard, unless they were trying not to be noticed. Inside, Ethan Miller stood out like a traffic cone at a funeral. He was 34, average height, slightly slouched from years of apologizing with his posture. His hair was brown and permanently indecisive, and he wore glasses with thin black frames that made him look more confident than he felt. Normally, Ethan blended in. That had been his strategy for most of his adult life. Today, apparently, he had chosen chaos. "Ethan," said a familiar voice. Marjorie Collins rose from her folding chair near the front of the room. She was in her early 60s, sharp-eyed, wearing a sensible cardigan and the expression of a woman who had seen enough life to know embarrassment when it walked in wearing sneakers. "You made it," she said warmly, saving him with kindness. Ethan nodded, cheeks burning. "Yeah, sorry, traffic." There had been no traffic. He took a seat in the back row, the plastic chair creaking under him like it wanted to tell everyone he didn't belong either. Around him sat a cross-section of Cedar Falls. Retirees with notebooks, a couple of college kids home for the weekend, parents who still smelled faintly of morning coffee, and one man in a pressed suit who glanced at Ethan's legs, then quickly away. The sign taped to the wall read, "Community Career Restart Workshop." That sign was the reason Ethan was here. It was also the reason he'd panicked that morning. 8 months unemployed. A savings account that now existed mostly as a memory. A closet full of clothes that no longer matched who he was trying to become. When his alarm went off at 6:30 a.m., Ethan had stared at the ceiling of his small rented duplex, listening to his neighbor's shower through the thin wall and wondering which version of himself he was supposed to present today. The confident one, the desperate one, the practical one who pretended this was all temporary. He opened his closet and felt the familiar frustration rise. The suit pants didn't fit anymore. The button-down had a coffee stain he kept forgetting about. The blazer, miraculously, still fit, if you ignored the fraying cuffs. The running shorts were clean. "I'll change later," he told himself, pulling on whatever was closest, the logic of a man already late for his own life. Now, sitting in the workshop, Ethan wished desperately for invisibility. Marjorie began speaking about resilience. About how Cedar Falls had reinvented itself after the factory downsized. About showing up even when you didn't feel ready. Ethan listened, but every word seemed to echo against the louder thought in his head. Everyone sees you. During the break, he stood near the coffee urn, pretending to read a flyer. "That's a bold look," said a voice beside him. Ethan turned to see Lucas Hernandez, late 20s, neatly dressed in a denim jacket and boots that had never seen mud. Lucas smiled, not unkindly, but amused. "You running a marathon after this?" Ethan laughed despite himself. "Something like that." Lucas nodded toward Ethan's outfit. "Man, I spent 20 minutes this morning picking a shirt so I wouldn't look like I was trying too hard. Guess I overthought it." Ethan blinked. "You think I didn't?" They shared a moment, a small one, but it loosened something. By the end of the workshop, Ethan still felt exposed, but not alone. Outside, as people filtered into the parking lot, Marjorie caught up with him. "You know," she said gently, "confidence isn't about getting it right the first time." Ethan glanced down at his outfit, then back up. "Feels like I got it wrong in several directions." She smiled. "Then you're learning faster than most." The wind lifted fallen leaves around their feet. Somewhere down the street, a storefront window reflected Ethan back at himself, awkward, mismatched, human. And for the first time that day, he didn't look away. The day refused to end quietly. After the workshop, Ethan Miller walked the 3 blocks back to his duplex on Oak Ridge Lane with the uneasy awareness that Cedar Falls was a town built on memory. People remembered faces, cars, shoes. They remembered who used to work where and who didn't anymore. As he passed the barber shop with its rotating red, white, blue pole and the bakery that smelled like cinnamon even through closed doors, Ethan caught his reflection again and again in shop windows. Each reflection showed the same man, blazer too formal for shorts, legs pale, confidence half-laced. At home, he peeled off the outfit like it had personally betrayed him. He sat on the edge of his bed, elbows on knees, staring at the carpet worn thin by pacing. The laugh from the workshop replayed in his head, not as mockery anymore, but as exposure. Being seen had felt dangerous. Being seen had also felt real. By evening, his phone buzzed with a text from Lucas. "Some of us are grabbing burgers at Miller's Grill. You in?" Ethan hesitated. He typed maybe another time and deleted it. Then he typed sure and stared at it long enough to realize this was exactly the kind of moment he usually avoided. He changed, jeans, clean sneakers, a plain flannel, and headed out before doubt could reorganize. Miller's Grill glowed warm against the cooling air. Inside, the booths were cracked vinyl, the walls decorated with high school sports photos from decades ago. Lucas waved him over, joined by 2 others from the workshop, Tasha Green, mid-20s, hair in neat braids, expressive eyes, and Hal, Whitman, late 50s, mustache-like punctuation, wearing a windbreaker older than some of the menu items. "So," Hal said, smiling as Ethan slid in, "you survived today." Ethan laughed. "Barely." They talked about jobs they'd lost, jobs they wanted, and the strange pressure of starting again in a town that remembered your best years. When the food came, Ethan realized something quietly important. Nobody cared what he was wearing now. They cared that he showed up. Over the next few weeks, Cedar Falls stayed busy with small-town rituals, Friday football games, farmers market Saturdays, church bake sales that doubled as social audits. Ethan attended more than he used to. Sometimes overdressed, sometimes under. Once, he wore dress shoes to help Lucas move a couch and spent the afternoon sliding on carpet like a confused penguin. Each mistake earned a laugh. Each laugh hurt less. Marjorie Collins invited him to help coordinate the fall job fair. "You're good with people," she said, as if it were obvious. On the morning of the event, Ethan stood in the high school gym wearing a simple button-down and clean jeans. He felt present. He felt aligned. Midway through the fair, a young man approached him, eyes nervous. "Hey," he said, glancing down at his own mismatched clothes. "Is this okay?" Ethan smiled. "Genuine. You're here. That's what matters." The realization landed fully then. Confidence wasn't stitched into fabric. It was practiced in public. That night, walking home under streetlights, Ethan felt lighter. The town looked the same, brick storefronts, quiet porches, but his relationship to it had changed. He was no longer hiding inside clothes meant to disguise uncertainty. He was learning how to wear himself. The first frost of November came early to Cedar Falls. It edged the sidewalks with white and turned car roofs into chalkboards of scraped arcs. The air smelled sharper now, cold metal, fallen leaves, distant wood smoke. Ethan Miller noticed these things more than he used to. Maybe that was part of confidence, he thought, not shrinking from the details. On the morning of his first real interview in nearly a year, Ethan stood in front of his bathroom mirror and breathed. The mirror was cracked at the corner, the light slightly yellow. His reflection looked like him, finally. Dark jeans that fit, a plain white shirt, a charcoal jacket that wasn't pretending to be anything else. No costume, no apology. "Okay," he said to himself. "Okay." Outside, the town moved with familiar rhythms. Kids waited for buses in oversized coats. The coffee shop on Main unlocked its door at exactly 7, as it always had. Ethan walked, hands in pockets, not rushing. When he passed the storefront windows, he didn't flinch. The interview, at a regional logistics company just outside town, didn't end with fireworks. It ended with a handshake that felt steady, real. Afterward, Ethan stopped at Miller's Grill. Hal Whitman sat at the counter, nursing coffee. "How'd it go?" Hal asked. Ethan shrugged, smiling. "I didn't trip over my shoes." Hal chuckled. "That's step 1. Days later, the call came. Not a dream job, a start. Ethan accepted. Work brought routine. Routine brought quiet pride. And quiet pride, he learned, changed how people looked at you. Not because of what you wore, but because of how you stood. At the winter job fair, Ethan helped Marjorie again. This time, he wore a sweater Lucas had recommended. Tasha teased him about finally understanding layers. They laughed. It felt earned. One afternoon, walking home in the early dark, Ethan passed the community center. The lights were on inside. He paused, watching silhouettes move behind the glass. He thought about that first day. The laugh, the door, the shorts. He smiled. Confidence, he realized, wasn't about never choosing the wrong outfit. It was about choosing to stay in the room. You don't find confidence by dressing for who you wish you were. You build it by showing up as who you are, again and again, until the fit feels right.
Like and subscribe if you want to be happy and motivated.